Hey, Cassie, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All right, so I wanted to reach out to you because I saw a social media post about something you did, which was turning some of your former tenants into owners and kind of working through that whole life cycle. So I want to ask you a little bit about that today because I know it's happened a few times and it's not by accident. But first, for people reading or watching, just give us some context on who you are, your company, how long you've been there, and the market you guys serve.
Yeah, so my name's Cassie Parker. I'm with Renters Warehouse here in Hampton Roads, Virginia. I have been serving as their business development manager for the last 5.5 years. Um, been sorry. Um, about our market, we have a very military dense market, which is kind of niche to our community. We're surrounded by a ton of different military bases with every branch of the military. So that kind of sums up our market as far as the majority goes. And then, of course, we have your every day-to-day landlord, your investors, everything like that. So we serve everyone. But I think the niche in our market is that we are so military heavy.
That makes a lot of sense, especially knowing the area you're in. Okay, and so give us maybe your favorite story. Obviously, you've been there 5.5 years. You've seen a couple of these. Give us maybe your favorite story of somebody that you've seen kind of go through this whole life cycle.
Yeah, so we've had tenants that probably predate me being here. We've been around for about 9 years. So I came in about 4 years in. So a couple of tenants that probably I never had a hand in, but they ended up coming around while I was BDM and reaching out to us for management services. And then I go into our system and I find out, oh, you were previously a tenant. Tell me about that. And they're like, well, they're like, we realized at the time, or we realized later that at the time, everything you had implemented had purpose. When you're a tenant and you have to accrue certain fees and whatnot that are there to benefit not only the protection of the property, but the landlord. As a tenant, you may see those things. You might be like, oh, I feel a little bit nickel and dimed here. But then when you turn to the other side of it and you become a landlord, you realize the purpose for those fees and you understand the purpose between different policies and why we have inspections and things like that, that maybe as a tenant you felt were, um, you know, annoying. But as an owner, those are things you want when you become a landlord. So these tenants saw from a whole different view what being a tenant with us was like, and they did feel taken care of, even outside of the nuance of property management. So the fact that they came back around and trusted us enough to manage the property that they now owned, and they, from having a unique perspective of being the tenant, coming back to us, that's just the biggest compliment. And then, of course, we have had tenants that I did have a hand in. I signed up the owner. We took a hand in placing the tenant. I met them when they came in and dropped off funds. We started running programs after I started where we'll help tenants buy a home if that's their dream. So we'll walk them through the home buying process and everything like that. So some of these tenants we've helped acquire these properties, and then like I said, with us being such a military dense community, they were buying a property thinking they're going to be here for a while, and then they get these surprise orders and they have to go, and we're the first person at the top of their mind, because not only did we find them their first home when they moved here, we helped them buy their new home, and then they trusted us enough to come back to us to manage it because they did have that experience with us as a tenant. So that's like the biggest, I think, notable thing when it comes to you're doing a good job. And it makes my job very easy in selling our services to people, or just communicating what we do, knowing that we have people on both ends of the spectrum. And property management, it is very hard to keep both sides of the line happy, your tenant and your owner. So the fact that we have these people that had this really positive experience with us, I think that's very rare and very unique. And it's one of those things that I'm very proud of my whole team for, that we provided that experience to a tenant and then led them to be happy with us as an owner. So,
That's great. Well, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, I think it almost goes without saying you can't do a terrible job on the tenant side and expect that they would ever want to hire you. In fact, not only would you not create a client, you're just as likely to create a mortal enemy, somebody who swears that they would never
mm-hmm.
give you another dollar or work with you again, right? So obviously doing right by the tenant is there. But so a couple questions. The first one's easy. The tenant has to know who you are. I mean, I think that a lot of tenants just think, oh, this is my landlord, and they don't see the branding, they don't know the faces behind it. You already mentioned people came in the office. It sounds like you're doing things where you're creating a branded experience for the tenants so they actually know not only the company they're working with, but the people they're working with, right? Is that just on accident, or is that a big focus for you guys?
So we are pretty technologically driven here. When it comes to tenants, we do a lot to make things as easy for them as possible, from scheduling showings to making online payments and whatnot. So we actually, it's interesting, don't always have a whole lot of face-to-face interaction with tenants until they are coming in to maybe ask questions or drop off security deposits or rents or what have you. But it's interesting to me that in the time we do spend with them, I feel like we do make an impact. There's a connection there even through technology. We're very responsive, which I feel like sets us apart a bit too. So when tenants do reach out to us for anything, they're getting an answer. They know who we are, even without knowing us personally. We've had so many of our staff get, 5-star reviews from tenants that they may have never met them face to face, but they know that they're taken care of by Delena, our maintenance person. She's gotten more reviews, like positive reviews, than almost most of our team, and that's very hard for somebody in maintenance to get. So I think the experience, even though it may not always be face to face, it's an experience that tenants can appreciate. So
Of
I don't
course,
want to,
yeah.
yeah.
And it can also be branded, even though it's not face to face, right? So if your communication is high quality, it's got your name. I'm guessing you guys are doing that because I see how you market and
Mhm.
do that very well. So I'm guessing maybe you're not consciously doing it, but I'm assuming it's pretty baked in and they know exactly who they're dealing with, and they're being taken care of. So I think
Mhm.
that's huge. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the, because you guys, this isn't all happening by accident or just because you're in a military town, at least from what I'm gathering. You've got some programs. So first program you mentioned was helping them become owners. So you want to tell us about that program, why you've implemented that and how that works?
Yeah, so we, of course, being a company, we're always looking for different ways that we can branch out and really help in every aspect of our business. So we do have a full real estate team here as well. I practice, our broker practices, and we have tenants that move in, and we all hear in the news and everything like that. Rents are high, and I feel for these people. And everybody's dream, the American dream, has always been homeownership. So we've implemented this program where when they move into a property, once they become a customer of ours, we'll send them information and dialogue on if you should ever choose to purchase. We are always here in your corner. We'll help you with closing cost assistance. We've got an amazing lender who will work with you. Maybe your thing right now is that you don't feel like you make enough. She'll get you in the right direction, let you know what you can qualify for. So maybe at the end of your lease, if that's something you want to do, we've given you all the tools. You've had the year, 2, 3 years to prep for it. So that way, by the time your lease is up and we ask you, hey, are you looking to purchase? You can say like wholeheartedly, like, yes, I'm ready, because we've given them all the tools along the way to make sure that they are in a position where they can. And then a lot of times they end up purchasing and they're super happy because now their mortgage is like half of what their rent was. And the cycle continues. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's worth pointing out that, I think if you've been in the business for a while, if you've been around real estate like you and I are, or if you reach a certain age and you just have a certain amount of experience, you almost you almost are in disbelief that some people don't know a realtor, a real estate agent. They don't know how to qualify for a mortgage, right? Like it's kind of the curse of knowledge. It's like you just assume, oh, they don't need our help. Like they probably know somebody, and you can be dismissive of that. At least I've seen that, and it's a great point. Some of these people are very young, or maybe they're coming from a background where they just don't know anybody in real estate and they don't know where to start, and it's all very overwhelming to them. So I think it's quite brilliant that you're just, in a very non-aggressive way, just passively putting this in front of them and saying, if you ever have questions, if you ever want to know, if you feel like this is something you're curious about, we have sounds like a free service, like education for them, right?
yeah. And what I feel like a lot of people, it's probably thought of, but a lot of tenants entering the market are like these 18, 19-year-old, 20-something-year-olds, and they may not have financial literacy. It's not very much taught in school. It's not, they don't teach you how to buy a house in school or anything like that. So the fact that they get this information so early on, like I've known a couple of 19-year-old kids who have bought, not kids, you're adults, you're 19. But I've known a couple of 19-year-olds who bought their first investment property at 19. So things like that really excite me. And I'm not saying that's due to our program or anything like that, but I've seen it happen. So knowing that we have these people that rent from us and might have this ability to make this happen for them. I mean, if I could go back to 19 and buy my first house, I definitely would have, but I didn't have this knowledge at 19. So I'm very happy that it's something we can share with this younger demographic of people who can take advantage.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. So any other programs or just the communication that you're using? Because obviously, they're moving out or they don't buy a house with you, they're just moving out and then they're coming back a couple of years later. Anything else that somebody might want to use or implement to make sure that they're taking advantage of all their previous tenants that might want to become investors?
I always just say keep an open line of communication. Even if they do move out, let's just say they move into a property that another property manager manages. You've got their email, you've got their resources. It's up to you if you want to continue to reach out. It depends honestly on how much an individual cares to maintain that relationship. How, of course, the relationship ended or how it move forward, but you could always keep them in a line of communication. I know a lot of realtors do it where they just have a pipeline going like, hey, just a reminder, I'm always here for you. So even as a company, you could do that. Like, hey, we understand you found housing somewhere else. We're very happy for you. If you ever need our services in the future, if you'd ever like to purchase a home in the future, our team is always here to support you no matter what. So keeping those open lines of communications. I know we do it a lot of times on the owner side, but I think on the tenant side, it's very valuable as well, because as the whole reason for this meeting, tenants become owners one day. So just always letting them know you're a resource no matter what phase of life they're in.
That's great. Do you have like a newsletter that you have for your tenants where they can opt out of, but you just keep communicating with them as long as they'll let you?
Yes, we do have a newsletter that goes out, pretty much just standard, like your market data. I like to throw in a fun recipe in there because everybody likes to cook. Well, not everybody, but I like to cook, so I'll throw
Not
a recipe out there every once in a while. So yeah, it's just some fun information. It might just be about what the market's doing right now, a little employee highlight, maybe an owner highlight, property highlight, recipe. It's simple, but it's just there to also be a connector between us and our tenants.
That's great. Amazing. Well, this all just seems simple, but it takes intention and it takes work, right? And a commitment, which I really appreciate. Some of the best systems are, and it takes time. That's the other thing. This is not something you're going to do that's going to get you results in 9 days. And that's the hardest thing in business sometimes to stick with is those momentum. It's the compound interest, right? We all know it. We all know compound interest works, but it doesn't feel like it when you invest the first $200,
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add or anything else you think you guys do that if someone's kind of serious about the longevity game that they should be thinking about?
Just that, time is always the main factor there. Like you said, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think the last tenant we had that became a landlord with us, he was a tenant with us 3 years ago. So it's just, consistency, staying in front of people, or at least being somebody memorable that they want to come back to. So if you don't have the systems in place, just make sure you gave them great service to begin with and they'll remember you. So
Absolutely. All right, Cassie, this was amazing. Thank you very much.
thank you.